Hey there, what's up? My friend asked if I could do a tutorial on lighting, shading, all that stuff, because apparently I'm very good at it. I don't know, I've been told that. I think I'm good at it. I'm an artist, I guess. But, yeah, I guess I'll do that. I don't make a lot of these videos, so I'm not very good at talking. Um, but in this, I'm gonna talk about color choice, like lighting sources, different ways to shade, like the colors you should use to shade and highlight things. And I guess that's really it. So what we have here is my original OC, three different versions of her. The one on the far left is like what you'd see on a character sheet, like the actual colors of a character. The second one is kind of like what she would actually look like under specific lighting. Not specific lighting, but just like, you know, not following the base colors exactly. And then the one on the far right is like crazy lighting, just like really intense shadows and all that. Just like kind of going wild with it. So first, that's the first point, is color choice. You always want your color choice to be based on, like, actual colors. Like, you want to know, first you gotta know what color your whatever you're drawing is, and then you can change it based on, like, lighting and just what you want the piece to look like. So, in the middle one, on the far left, I just did what she would look like, just like what the actual colors are. And then the middle one, I just tilted it all towards, like, red or purplish, I guess. And then on the far right, it's blue, which is what the background, like the squares in the background, kind of symbolize. Like the gray is just neutral, then under reddish lighting, and then under blue shadows. And the thing is, a lot of like just to make things look a certain color, you don't have to tilt it all the way to that color. Like for example, this is like a green. It's not blue, but it looks blue in combination with all the other colors. And then this is like yellow. This is like close to blue. This is yellow. And then the background is what's actually blue. And that doesn't always work perfectly when you don't have shading. It doesn't work perfectly here because I haven't shaded it, but that's kind of what it is. That's just like generally how you choose a color. You just tilt it towards something. Like tilt it towards another color. Like the original is like orangish, and then this is green, and then here is orange, and then this is like slightly redder. And a lot of times, a lot of mistakes people make is that they make things too saturated, which is, you can do it. You can make things saturated. I'm not telling you how to do your art, but a lot of times things look better if you have it more grayish. Yeah. I don't know. So, first thing to keep in mind when you're shading is having a light source. Like knowing where the light source is coming from. And a way you can kind of figure that out, I don't do this personally, is you could just draw lines, like, onto your character, not onto your character, but onto the drawing. Let's say the light is coming from, like, this way. So, if you wanted to, you could theoretically, like, draw lines to show where the light is coming from. This. I don't know. But I generally don't do that. What I do is just kind of visualize it. And one of the things that can help you visualize how lighting is like how light will fall on something is like breaking it up into geometric shapes. So like, oh, I don't know, like this would be darker over like here, like this square, or not square, but this shape here, these shapes here, like just breaking it up, you know? Yeah. Yeah. So already it kind of looks more like, you know, and then you take away the lines and it's like, oh, that doesn't look good, but you make it look good. Yeah. Well, anyway, that's one way. The planes of the face are kind of, I'm not going to go over how that works, but that's just one method you could use to like help you figure out what parts are bright, what parts are dark. Um, but when you're choosing colors to shade with, the first thing you want to do is determine what color. First, well, after you choose where your light's coming from, you want to determine the color of your light. So say, the light is orange. It's like orange, red, you know. Then, if that's your light color, then your shadow color would be... Actually, let's choose a different color. The light is red, so then your shadow color would be like green, or like bluish. Like just somewhere in this range. Yeah. And I guess the first method that I use for shading sometimes is just multiplying. Like, like multiplying this color. So a lot of times you just use colors that are similar, but you should, when you choose a color to shade with, you should make it more the color that the light, you know, the more towards the color of your shadow. And also, this is like something people don't really know, I guess. I don't know, something that I didn't know, at least for a while, is that you should make the shadow actually more saturated rather than less saturated. So like, and that's partially what multiply does. You can like make it more saturated. So like choose a color, and then one of the ways I do it is I choose like a base color, and then I do the darkest darks. So like, I'll probably cut this out. So yeah, once you have like the darkest darks, then what I do sometimes, and this is like for, like this method would be for kind of a drawing that doesn't have a lot of like funky colors. It's just kind of like not a simple drawing, but you know, like just not flat colors, but you know, like clear-cut colors. So, and if the color is like not the right color that you want, you can just change it like with a filter or something. But this color's good. So then what I do is I multiply this layer. I multiply the layer with like the darkest darks, and then I change this to be less saturated, slightly brighter, and more towards the original color. And then I use that color to shade in the areas that are dark, but not as dark as like the most heavy shadows. So like places, you know, like this. And it works for me pretty well. And of course this is only one method of shading. There's a lot more. This is just how I do it, I guess, in some instances. I don't always shade like this, which you will see later in the video. And you can change colors whenever you want. You can just go up to, you know, assuming you're using Fire Alpaca. I'm sure other drawing programs have things that are similar to, you know, this. I should stop saying, you know. Something that is, like, it makes your shading, and I don't want to say it makes it better, but a tip for shading is that, like, light isn't the default state of things. Things are, by default, in shadows, and light is just kind of where the shadows aren't. Light, like, it falls on objects. It's not like it's the shadows are something that you add to something. It's actually the light that you add. So, I don't know if there's a good way to explain this, but you could think of it as light is kind of like a liquid that, it's like a liquid that flows over things, I guess. And the parts where the shadows are like the dry parts. And then the parts where the lights are the, like, it's rain. Like, think of rain, and like a rain hitting an umbrella. The parts where, like, the parts under the umbrella are gonna be like, it's gonna be reversed, actually. The parts under the umbrella are usually lighter because rain makes things dark. Like, being wet makes things darker. But in art, the rain is the light, and the umbrella is whatever object you're drawing. And then, yeah, kind of, you know, you probably don't know, but that's how I think of it. that's good enough. That's good enough for the purpose of a crappy YouTube tutorial. Yeah. So then, in this type of shading, when I'm doing highlights, I usually do an overlay. And in this type of shading, I do this just, I don't know, like these, I use a lot of layers. You probably can see that. I have so many layers, because I'm a very organized person, and I hate it. So, this, so, what was the light source? The light source was, like, red, right? So, the light is gonna be like this, but tilted towards red. And if the shadows are more saturated, then the light is actually gonna be less saturated. And it's, when you do lighting, you're gonna want to, and if you use overlay, you're gonna want to change it very little, because overlay is crazy sensitive. So, yeah, you're gonna want to really desaturate it too. Yeah. You might even need to make it darker than your original color, but the final product, like with the overlay, should end up slightly lighter and slightly more the color of your light source. You can just slap that baby on wherever, like, there's protruding edges or flat planes that would hit, that the light would catch. So yeah, and then once you have, like, the places where it is, you know, I guess blocked in, you can, like, sharpen it up or do just different things to it. I don't know, it's all up to you. I'm probably gonna clean this up, since this style, I think, works better with, like, more geometric shapes, rather than, like squiggly shapes. Yeah, so once you're done with, like, I guess filling things in, you know, you can always go back and adjust things, and, you know, change things up a little bit. Like, I don't really like the color of the highlight, so I'm gonna, like, change it up a little bit. Maybe I want it more red, maybe I want it more red, or I want to turn down the saturation, turn down the brightness, make it just look a little bit more, you know, part of the characters, like make it look more realistic. I don't know. But yeah, that's how I do it, I guess. Oh yeah, a little side note. A lot of times when you're shading dark stuff, it's really hard to, like, you know, get the shadows to work, because it's like, oh, I'm just gonna end up using black. Don't let anybody ever tell you that using black to shade is a bad thing. I personally wouldn't go all the way black, but, you know, it's not a terrible thing to shade with black. It's totally doable. It looks bad when it's used on, like, lighter colors. Even, like, mid-tone colors, it kind of looks like, ugh. But when you shade with black on a dark surface, it works. Just trust me on this. So, Ardelias don't know what they're doing. They're morons. Read a comic book, they're shaded in black. They're just, you know, it's all about style, too. Also, not another, but a quick tip on shading hair. Do this. It looks cool, I think. If you want to draw exactly like me, just erase stuff. It looks great. Looks really cool. Also, just a personal thing. With this style, when I get down to, like, the face, I usually don't shade the eyes, as weird as that sounds. I just think, like, shading the eyes and the teeth, it kind of takes away from the emphasis of the face. At least in my opinion. Don't quote me on that. But, yeah, I just kind of... Also, I don't usually multiply when I'm doing these parts, I guess, of it. I just choose a color and go. So yeah, that's usually what you'll end. I obviously I did this kind of fast, but that's kind of the end product you'll end up with this. Yeah, I guess on to the next method. So the next method here, I'm just gonna go over, like, more, not so, I guess, formulaic colors and shading, because, well, I think geometrics look cool. That's not how it is in real life. Shadows are round, and they're they like form together, they just work really weird. So generally, if you don't want to look geometric intentionally, you're gonna want to make the shadows more round. And you're gonna want to, if you want to push the colors of your art, you're gonna want to like not make it just multiplied on another layer, you know. You know how it is. Look how gross it looks without lines. It looks all lumpy. So for this, I still have so many layers though. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry you have to look at this. Yeah. So for this, I have, this version is more tilted towards red, just for, like, color harmony. Like, this is more, it's also more desaturated than the original colors I have on the first one that are the actual colors. So, something that is kind of a concept is that colors look different when they're next to each other. Like, for example, if you put, like, blue and orange together, they make each other really pop. It's like they're complementary, so they like just certain colors do certain things to other colors. Like if I don't know, I don't have an example. I don't know how to draw. I'm bullshitting everything. I'm sorry, but something I learned recently is that desaturating a color and then comparing it to another color will make it look like the complement. So like if I just take this and make it slightly more gray and darker, it'll look like the shadows are blue. Like this is gray, but it looks blue compared to the rest of it because all of it is red. It looks kind of like gross. I don't know. And you can change up like how saturated things are. Like that looks blue, but it's just a less saturated version of this color. So that's a fun thing to do when you're just kind of playing around with shading, but you still want it to look like I guess realistic. I'm not gonna spend as much time coloring this one because I already did kind of like a more in-depth thing on how to color. This is just kind of colors. Colors, what are they good for? So yeah, all those same tips that I gave for the other drawing still apply when you're working with like less structured colors, but I guess I can't really teach you color theory right in this video. That's something you kind of got to work out yourself. But shading and lighting really does have a lot to do with like the colors you use, and you can't just shade with like a darker version. Well, you can. I'm not saying you can't, but the way people want to improve with their art and like looking more realistic, you can't just really shade with the same color. I guess a tip I would have is if you want to figure out how lighting works, go take some not take some pictures, just find some pictures of like some interesting lighting that you want to work with, and then just kind of open it up and like eyedrop what the colors, like what colors it is. You might find out some weird stuff, like even if something looks really, really bright, it might actually be dark because compared to the other things, it looks bright. So yeah, as for kind of more freehand colors and like this, even though this is just a desaturated version, it still looks blue, so you would want the lighting to be kind of the opposite of blue, and that's orange or yellow or just whatever, just something around this area, I guess. And I'm not gonna say that's what it should be, but you know, I guess the lighting in this image is more reddish, so you could go red, purpley. Really, it doesn't matter all that much. Just so long as it looks good, is what I would say. It doesn't, like, art, it doesn't have to be perfect. It can just look cool, and then that's art. It's art, buddy. So you can just go for it. You can do whatever you want. It's not even a big deal. Like, I like this color. It's not the opposite of blue, but it looks like it goes good with the other colors. It looks like it's lighter than the default tone. It's like, looks nice. And you just kind of do the same stuff. Also, the amount of highlights, you don't have to ever add anything. Like, nothing is required. Uh, the amount of highlights can also kind of depict how intense the light is, or how diffuse, like, direct the light is. Like, if the light is very direct, there's probably going to be a lot more highlights. But if the light is, like, diffused and kind of just, like, ambient, there's not going to be as many highlights. Or at least the highlights won't be as strong. And they'll have softer edges. And don't ever let anybody tell you not to shade with an airbrush tool, because it can look good. Things that art elitists say, like, oh, never do this, they only look bad because the artist who uses them doesn't, like, really have access to or know other techniques, and that's because they're beginner artists, so of course it looks bad, because they've just started out. Art elitists will tell you, don't do this, don't draw furries. You can draw furries, you can draw whatever you want, it's art. If you think art has to inherently have a meaning, you're a moron. Art can just be a furry. Art can be a freaking lime-colored furry with a huge sword, huge paws. It can be whatever you want it to be. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk. Also, another side note, it doesn't matter what technique you use, it's always going to be hard to shade dark colors, so just practice that. I don't know what to do either. I just do what looks good, and it turns out, I guess. Ugh. I still think my hair looks really good, so. Got that going for me, at least. This should be obvious, but if the light is less intense, then the difference between the colors you use will also be less intense. So just keep that in mind, I guess. Because these two colors... Oh, shoot. My tablet. Oh, no. Yeah, okay, so these two colors are, like, very, very close. These colors are very close, but they look... If you use all colors that look close together, they're gonna look more similar than they actually are. So, like, these colors are really close together, and these colors... they're less close together, I guess. It's just subtle differences. Okay, so that about wraps up what I have to say about, like, less rigid color schemes. In general, if you're not going for intentionally geometric, just kind of go with it. Just kind of make things a little bit lumpy. I don't know. But, now coming to the coolest part. That is, just doing whatever the hell you want. I don't know really how to give tips on this, since it's just kind of like, go crazy, buddy. Still a million layers. I'm so terrible at this. But, okay, well, first off, I should talk about, kinda, the colors in this, I guess. Compared to, I have the swatches down here. Compared to this color scheme, this one is very, like, it's very much darker, but as you can see, you can still tell that this part is so much lighter than, like, the rest of the skin, and that the eyes are white, even though it's way, way dark. It's not even close to white. And again, that's because colors affect each other when they're next to each other, and it's really important to lighting. So, this is, like, really, I guess, really, really dark lighting. And when you have, the further the colors get from what the original colors are, the more crazy, I guess, you could go with the colors you used to shade with. So for this, I'm just gonna go absolutely buck wild. I'm just gonna go, like, full on blue. Oops, wrong layer. I'm gonna go full on blue. Maybe not that blue. Maybe I'll desaturate it a little bit. Full on blue. Real intense. Just put it everywhere. And then maybe less blue, more gray. Kind of add a mid-tone in there. More green. You can just kind of go crazy with the colors at some point. If you have enough practice with, like, figuring out what colors look best together and what, like, how colors affect each other. I would practice with more realistic colors and then move on to like stuff like this that's really just kind of out there. Also, don't think you're limited to using only consistent colors, because faces and just things in general have gradients and like just they're not all one color. Things are rarely ever flat colors, and that can look cool too, but don't ever think you have to color everything the same. Like, maybe you want to add some red here, and in which case you would make it darker and more saturated, because that's how, I guess, how it works. I don't know. And then this could be like a little bit more blue, because I guess that's, but only very little bit, because the colors are hard to work with, they're hard to choose. Maybe this is just a little bit more blue than the rest of it. Maybe this is like the ear color. This is a little bit more blue shading. Put that here. Just go bananas, dude. Do whatever you want. Doesn't even matter. Because art doesn't have to be perfect. Art can just look cool. That's, if you take away anything from this, just take away art, just make it look cool. Do what you want. And there's ways to make your art look cooler to more people, but in the end, it's your choice. Also, there's no shame in getting a color wrong. There's no shame in maybe messing up and having to go back. You can do whatever you want. Don't limit yourself to what you think you can do. Just go out there and do some bullshit. It probably will turn out fine. And if it doesn't, then you don't really have to even pay attention to that piece anymore. You can just kind of dump it. It doesn't matter. Messing up is part of art, and if you have to mess up to be better, then go and mess up. And then be better. One other thing is that when you have a more detailed drawing, you should have like a special color for your darkest spots, or I guess where your lines might be, if you don't do lines. So for example, and it should be like a standout color. If your lightest lights and your darkest dark should stand out from the rest of your drawing, like, clearly. So, for example, here, if it's just, like, a different saturation, it doesn't even have to be, like, completely darker, it'll pop. Like, the darkest spots where you want them to pop, they'll pop if you just make it a different color. That's what I do, anyway. And I guess that's not the last thing, because also, something that really adds kind of realism to a drawing is knowing that there's such a thing as reflected light. So on the side of the drawing that you would consider the darkest, there's usually a little bit of, like, light there, because it reflects, it's bouncing off, like, it goes there and then bounces back onto whatever you're drawing. So, here, so here I would, like, just lighten this ever so slightly, and then make an outline, because that's where the light is coming from. That's where it's bouncing back. And it would exist on the darkest darks, it exists everywhere. So if you want to just add a little bit more cool stuff to whatever you're drawing, that's a good way. It's pretty advanced technique. Not really, though, because you kind of just learn that in whatever. If you took an art class, if you're self-taught, smash that motherfucking like button. Whoo, yeah, baby. Smash that like, right? Just obliterate it. Make it cry. Yeah. Oh, can we hit 2 trillion likes? Whoo, buddy, yeah. Oh yeah, baby. Oh yeah. Absolutely. So, yeah, I guess that's the end of this video. I don't really have anything else to say. I don't know if this was helpful to anyone, but I did it. So, yeah, slap that subscribe button for more, probably not more videos like this, because I don't know how to talk. But anyway, yeah, Laura, I hope you enjoyed.